blocking right here. Get real tight. Okay.
We're live. Everybody, thanks for watching. I'm Adam Biggers, Great Lakes Divide. Joining me not as always because it's a new partnership, but
as always, two times in a row.
Ryan Schuiling. Follow me on Twitter at AdamBiggers81. You can follow Great Lakes Divide at GL Divide. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. And follow Ryan Schuiling. Ryan Schuiling, and that's SCHUILING. 1 L.
Wow.
1 L.
1 L, 2 I's on either side, and you nailed it twice now. I don't think you're ever going to get it wrong.
No, I hope not.
Yeah.
I hope not.
Absolutely. So yesterday, guys, we talked a lot more about Michigan, Jim Harbaugh, Karan Higdon, everything the Wolverines were anticipating coming in. Grant Newsom nuking a blogger that had no business putting information out there.
Blogger's a generous term.
Okay, all right. I like to be generous, but no, in this particular case, I mean, I think it's a prime example. We can kind of start here with ethics and reporting, Adam, and why you and I do things the way that we do them, the process that we have. I think maybe our viewers would like to know a little bit more of what goes into your mechanisms of how you report on something.
I look at these guys all the same, regardless of the school, regardless of the coach. There's a fine line between having respect for the athletes, coaches, respect for the game, and then kind of crossing that line, trying to be friends, trying to fluff, being a super fan. There's a good balance, or there's a, what word am I looking for? It's a careful balance. It's a delicate balance, and I think, and for me personally, I look at these guys as just student at their teams. I don't care. I mean, of course, I'm a sports fan. Ryan's a sports fan. A lot of you guys wonder out there, am I a Michigan fan? Am I a Michigan State fan? None of that matters. What matters to me is covering the stories of the athletes, covering the stories of the coaches, covering the stories of the program. And I think, Ryan, you said it pretty well yesterday. It's basically shining light on the subject.
Right.
Some people try to make themselves the subject. We're not the subject. We're just delivering you. We're giving you kind of an avenue, a glimpse, and hopefully, with our access, it gives you guys a little bit more of a detailed picture of what's going on, whether it's at Michigan or whether it's at Michigan State. That's my angle, and I think, in short, because I don't think we explained why we teamed, but Ryan and I both think the same way. So I think that if you guys want the unbiased, factual, honest, accurate coverage, you're going to get that from us. I'm not going to cheer for a team that I like. Ryan's not going to cheer for a team that he likes. That's irrelevant at this point. So Steve Florian is joining us.
Flow!
He said, "What's
Flash
up, fellas?"
flow! Yeah, fair, honest, accurate is really that's the standard right there. And I think as long as you adhere to that, you're not going to find yourself in a situation where you have to backtrack or retract reporting or apologize for things. So, Adam and I are going to do our best. We're not going to be perfect. We'll make mistakes like anybody else, but we're going to own those mistakes. And that kind of gets us to our initial topic today. And it was kind of blowing up on Twitter, the return of Jon Reschke and what that means for Michigan State, the why for Michigan State. In the full audio that Adam will be uploading shortly, and you can again follow us at Great Lakes Divide, GL Divide, both on Facebook and Twitter. We'll have the full audio. I participated in a pretty good give and take in the breakout individual podium session for Mark Dantonio. And the thing that I brought to his attention on Reschke was, you do a cost-benefit analysis, right? There are pros, there are cons to bringing a Jon Reschke back. Chris Solari, Detroit Free Press, was made aware of the text message in question, and there's not only derogatory language, foul language, but use of the N-word, a slur, of course, by Jon Reschke, and this was the reason for his departure in the first place. So Mark Dantonio brings the topic to the team of a possible return for Reschke. Now, initially, you're going to say, well, why? Why would Reschke come back? Why wouldn't he get a fresh start somewhere else? Why wouldn't the Spartan program move on? And the answer that Mark Dantonio gave, and we'll start with him, was he just saw it as he would rather forgiveness is power. He would rather give a young man a second chance if his teammates would agree to it than cast him off, send him into the darkness or the wilderness to fend for himself, and then you haven't really affected that young man and put him on a correct path. I think Mark sees himself in very, very many ways as a teacher and a mentor, and when these guys, fall off, do you believe in a second chance? I guess that's what we're talking. And in this particular instance, in the society within which we live, is Jon Reschke deserving of a second chance? And where I start, and I'll let you pick up, Adam, because you ran this by Khari Willis and L.J. Scott. We talked to Brian Lewerke about it a little bit, too. Those were the three players here representing Michigan State. It's not for us to decide. It's not for Adam or me or you as a fan or viewer or whatever to decide. It's those guys inside that locker room. That's their family.
Right.
That's their identity. And if they're okay with it, my opinion is, who are we to question it?
Well, and exactly. And I asked Khari point blank, I said, would it make a difference if he was just a classmate? Put yourself in that position. He's your friend, teammate. There's a different dynamic between teammates. And, we hear it's family. It is. You spend all your time with those guys. You work with those guys. All the cliche, the blood, sweat, tears, all that stuff with those guys. You're putting in all the work in the weight room and the conditioning. You're eating with these guys. You're hanging out with them. I asked Khari, would it make a difference if he was just your classmate? If this was a guy that you're just, had English 101 with, and, you guys got cool, you hung out, and all of a sudden, hey, he texted you and, dropped some N-bombs. Would you forgive him if he weren't your teammate? Khari Willis told me point blank, and Ryan, we're talking about second chances, and guys, the video of Khari is on the YouTube page that you're watching right now, so after you're done with this podcast, check it out. I'll tweet it out later, but if you're watching right now, you're on the inside track to watch it. Khari said he's all about second chances. And Khari delivered a great keynote speech today. We talked about that with him a little bit, but a lot of the message from Khari was regarding Jon Reschke was forgiveness. And in Khari's eyes, it wouldn't matter if he was just a regular classmate. I think, and it's because they got to know him. Now, how did they get to know him so well? Because he was their teammate. So, I guess in a way, was it I don't want to say, is it unfair to say that he really does feel that way? Because if he hadn't gotten to know Jon like that, if he was just Joe Schmo in psych or whatever class, but at the end of the day, Khari Willis says, very clear, it would not matter. And I asked him, the reaction, you guys, and when we were talking about, it's not for us to judge.
Right.
And to an extent, that's correct. Because, was it wrong? Yeah, of course it was wrong. To report on it, media has opinions on it, of course. That's our job. That's what we do. But if you're not in there and you don't know the exact dynamic of how it went down, what they went through, they voted him back in unanimously. There wasn't one person who said no. And this was not only a team vote by African-American players, because of the language, but Brian Lewerke was asked. I forgot who asked, but it was a good question by the gentleman who asked him. And Brian even said too, look, if he is genuinely apologetic and he wants to come back, we want him back. But there's not going to be another chance.
Kind of building on that point, Mark Dantonio, when addressing this, said, he brought it to their attention. He wants a player-led team. They have to be empowered, especially in today's society where information's instantaneous. You're going to face a crisis right now. They've been through it, obviously, in the football program and throughout Michigan State University with the events over the last year or so. So it's real-world experience in your face right now, and there's no better time to learn than in the present. And for Mark's point, he said whether it's kneeling for the anthem or the events on campus, off campus, or this issue with Jon Reschke, guys got to step up. And this is how you transform yourself from entering college as a 17, 18-year-old and becoming a man and leaving the program at age 21, 22, or 23. And that's the point that Lewerke kind of expanded on. It was brought to the Eagle Council, which is a group of about 12 players on Michigan State's football program who serve as leaders. And then from that council, captains are selected. I asked Coach Dantonio about that, and that was interesting too. In years past, it was like a collection of captains. They might have one for each unit, even each level of the defense or each area of the offense. Last year, it was two guys. It was Brian Allen, it was Chris Fry. That was it. And what I found fascinating about Mark's answer, and again, you can hear it in the audio that we upload for you here with Great Lakes Divide, is last year, kind of cut from the clock, those two guys far and away were the leaders. There were other leaders on the team, but there was a gap in responsibility and accountability and respect level that the other guys had for them. And as he determines captains for this year, I don't think he said this before, but Mark's looking to find 4 captains for this year's team. And I think it kind of spells out the 3 guys that were here, and Joe Bacci, to me, would be the strong candidate. You got 2 on offense, Lewerke and LJ Scott. You got Khari Willis and Joe Bacci on the other side of the ball. And I think that's a good core of leadership. My whole point would be to Mark, and I agree with him on this, the fewer captains you have, the fewer chefs in the kitchen, it's easier to kind of get a consensus of these are the point people, right, for leadership on the team. You still have the Eagle Council, and those guys are going to get together. They're going to have meetings. They're going to have discussions. They talked about this topic exclusively in a closed-door, players-only meeting session. So there was a lot of thought and time that went into this decision. And anybody carping from the outside, I'll say this. If it happened at Michigan, I would support the decision. If Michigan State's players decided they didn't want Reschke, I would support that decision because that comes from them. It affects them. They're the ones that have to deal and interact with Jon Reschke on a daily basis, weight room, classroom, on the road, on the field. And if they're okay with it, then again, who are we on the outside to go, well, no, you guys should be offended.
And you know what? And Steve Florian, he's watching live. Thanks, Steve. He says, I don't see him making any contributions, if any, this year. And Steve, to that point, because let's flip this around and say, okay, this was a star player that they can't live without who did this, and then all of a sudden, okay, well, hey, there's this is a guy, and Steve, I think that you hammer this home with what you say. This is a guy who probably won't make a major impact on the field this season, but they respect him enough, they respect his apology enough, and the guys are close enough to him to say, you know what, because it's been 17 months, year and a half,
a while, yeah.
It's been almost a year and a half. They're going to welcome this guy back with open arms.
I get back to your point about, okay, let's go on the other side. Let's say this was a big impact player. Let's say it was Joe Bacci.
Right.
God forbid.
Yeah.
Now they're bringing him back, and now the questions are going to be, well, you're bringing him back because he's a great player,
right,
and you need him to win.
Are you guys genuine about the forgiveness and all this stuff? And that's why, and I think with Steve, kind of that kind of flows into the point with Resch. I believe it, and it reinforces when Khari Willis told me that it wouldn't matter if he was a classmate or a teammate. The Jon Reschke that he knows is not a
racist.
A racist. He's not.
Yeah, that's another thing. Let's go there for a minute. Yeah, that word gets thrown around a lot.
It does.
And it does apply in certain circumstances. And where it is, it should be stamped out, removed, like the cancer that it is in our society, within workplaces, within teams. It has no place at all. That language, that attitude, anything that goes along with that. So if there was any doubt whatsoever, again, that, you know what, maybe Reschke is. We had it recently with the Milwaukee Brewers, Josh Hader, those tweets.
We were listening to that on the way here. And the guy gets a standing ovation.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
But in terms of the forgiveness part,
right,
the second chance part, again, I think this is within the fabric of the team. And what does this speak to as well, Adam? I think if Jon Reschke were trying to come back on that 2016 team that went 3-9, that had a leadership void, that had a divide, pun intended, in the locker room, along racial lines, along political lines, Trump-Hillary, it was a mess. It was chaos. There were certain actors within that locker room that contributed to a poisonous atmosphere. This is a different group. And there are a lot of leaders. It's a well-balanced kind of base of leadership for Michigan State. So I think they're more equipped to handle, and this is the point that Mark Dantonio drove home, this type of hot-button issue with Jon Reschke. And I trust Dantonio's judgment. In this case, Brian Lewerke, and each player we spoke to, and you spoke to Willis and LJ, about this, it wasn't as if they were hem-hawing around it. They were emphatic. They were decisive.
And I'm big on body language. I'm big on eye contact. If you are not looking at me and you're just giving me the answer, and your body language, if you're not directing your attention to me, you're not looking at me, I'm not going to consider your answer. I'm not going to say that you're lying, because people get nervous and that sort of stuff. But the direct eye contact, the matter-of-fact statement, I believe it. Whether, and this is out there in the court of public opinion, whether you agree with Michigan State's decision to bring Jon Reschke back or not, you're entitled to your opinion. We want to know what you think. Tweet me at AdamBiggers81.
Yeah, I'll put a poll question.
Yeah, poll question. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what I think or what Ryan thinks or what you think. It matters what Mark Dantonio thinks. It matters what LJ Scott thinks. It matters what Khari Willis thinks. Those guys, and again, back to Steve's point, Jon Reschke may or may not even make a big contribution to this team.
Well, there is a couple of things to parse through here in closing up this portion of the discussion on Reschke. If you do cost-benefit of analysis and you put two columns together, which is what I've done, when I come up with the cost, so the risk of bringing him back, the downside, the negative, tension in the locker room, doubt or uncertainty about whether or not this might rear its ugly head again, a cloud hanging over the locker room, the team, the program. And all of this comes back to one particular emotion, and that's fear. Do you fear the backlash, one, from the outside and the public and the media and the fans? Two, do you fear from the inside this reprising itself and you're being made to look foolish for taking a second chance on a guy? I mean, it is a risk under those circumstances.
And absolutely. And if Jon Reschke so much is slips and says anything that could be
real tight,
considered remotely racist, whether it is the use of the N-word or anything else that can even be remotely tied to a racially motivated comment, he's done.
It's zero tolerance.
I mean, there is. Yeah, I mean, Jon Reschke better be the first guy there. Better be the last one to leave. And from what LJ and Khari were saying, he's out there 7-on-7 with them. He's still part of the team in terms of his interaction with everybody else, and I think that means a lot to them, and that's why. And Steve's comment says, he said, I think if he was a Bocce type player who was a leader, I don't think he would see the team being so accepting because leaders are a reflection of the team. Steve, can you clarify that a little bit for me? I'll repeat that. He says, I think basically if Reschke was a Bocce type player who is a leader, and yes, Bocce is a leader, I don't think that you would see the team being so accepting because leaders are of the team. I'm having trouble reading right now.
Well, I mean, I kind of get his point to a degree that there's a higher standard, right? There's a higher bar, a guy that's been established as a leader, and if he pulls this crap, then you're asking more questions than maybe a fringe guy.
This is a leader of your program who is such a...
Right, he sets the standard, the example. But the other side of this, the good side, and this is what Dantonio focused on, was the forgiveness, the redemption. People love that kind of story, the rehabilitation of a person, to have a positive impact, to turn his life around, to have that chance to be enabled by his teammates and embraced in that fashion. There's a lot of power in that. That was the word that Mark used, and life lessons that come from that, especially at this age. A comment, though, that made me wince a little bit, and I don't know. I mean, Mark's up there and he's talking extemporaneously, and I get it. I'm not here to just rip apart everything he says, but when he said...
A double word score on that.
Thank you. That Jon Reschke now has paid the ultimate price by having his scholarship removed, by having football taken away. Well, I think more than any other school, Michigan State knows perhaps what the ultimate price is, what that means, what the context is of that. And so I don't know that that's the appropriate phrase. He didn't pay an ultimate price. He's getting a shot here. An ultimate price would be death penalty, either in reality or in kind of metaphorical terms. And he's done. It's over. He's on the outside. He's been exiled like Napoleon Bonaparte on an island somewhere. That hasn't happened. So, I don't know. It's been addressed here. It's an ongoing thing. That's what Mark also said. It's a process. This isn't just like you snap your fingers, it's all well and good, and we go back and like nothing happened. That's not going to be it. Like you said, Adam, he's going to have to prove himself each and every day. And maybe this has served to set an example or teach lessons to young players coming in of, watch this guy. And, he either is going to deliver on that in a good way, or he's going to be cast out again. And there's another type of lesson that you can learn.
And I think, real quick, one of my driving thoughts on this is, if they didn't really believe in Jon Reschke, because if this fails,
there's a risk.
There's huge risk.
Yeah.
What's the reward? And again, Jon Reschke, not a superstar player. When you're weighing the risk to reward, if this does not work out, this looks very bad on Michigan State. Why are you bringing this guy back? Part of me has to believe that they are very confident, and that maybe I'm not saying that Jon Reschke was done wrong or painted the wrong picture. He did what he did. That was wrong. But they know him better than what even informed media people think that they know Jon Reschke. So that's where I'm going. But they have to have the utmost confidence to take a chance on a guy. And again, going back to Steve's point, who may or may not play. to bring him back under these circumstances, they have to believe in it. I think it is a genuine, it's a genuine kind of throwing him another chance.
Well, to put a finer point on it, you don't want to give a guy a second chance just because he's a great player, and you don't want to throw a guy away just because he's not.
Exactly.
If you have that kind of wavering standard,
it's the person. I think they're looking at the
got to.
If Steve Florian says, yes, say he's a captain and makes those comments, I don't believe the team would be as accepting to have him back. He says they wouldn't want someone who makes those comments being a leader of their team. I mean, you're not wrong, Steve.
Yeah, but everybody makes mistakes. Some are bigger than others. This was an enormous one, and it was an emotional, knee-jerk kind of deal. And again, the principal characters involved who know Jon Reschke speak to his character that this was an exception, this was an aberration, this was an anomaly. So we're going to go with their word. And again, the leaders on this team, if I'm going to call out captains, the four of them, the three that were here, Khari Willis, Joe Bacci, and then on the other side, L.J. Scott, Brian Lewerke. I also asked Coach Dantonio about Bill Beekman, and he reiterated that it was him, it was Tom Izzo that put on a full court press to push for the nomination on a full-time basis of Bill Beekman as athletic director. And I've made this point repeatedly on Twitter. I want to say it again here. My kind of analysis or opinion of Beekman has nothing to do with him personally. I don't know him. I know of him. I know people who speak highly of him. In fact, I don't know a single person who said anything negative about him, his character's background. He has strong Michigan State ties. But that kind of runs counter to what we were told, what we figured Michigan State needed, which was an outside voice, a fresh perspective, a fresh set of eyes to come in and go, what are the problems here? So what stood out to me in Mark's answer when I asked him about Beekman and why he was the right guy at the right time, and he talked about that, kind of backing up from that a little bit was, what are the problems at Michigan State? What needs to change? What could be better? And when I asked Mark that, maybe I got lost in the question a little bit, but he spoke highly and hit all the bullet points as to why Bill Beekman's the guy and why he believes in him. He's a solid guy, high character, high integrity, has managed and worked in various facets of Michigan State University, knows the faculty. He made it was as if somebody walked into one of these media rooms and knew everybody there. That kind of power of interaction. But what was lacking again, and it's not that Mark wouldn't speak to this, he just didn't. What are the problems? What needed to change under Simon and Hollis? Let's be honest. Let's get it out there. Let's talk about it and say, look, we need to improve interdepartmental communication. We need to be on the same page. We need to have a uniform list of standards in terms of how problems are handled, how they're reported, how they're communicated, how they're dealt with, what the outcomes are, what the consequences are. Didn't really get any of that in the answer, Adam. And to me, again, it leaves something lacking. It leaves definitely a proving ground period for Bill Beekman going forward. I know the last several months, his interim has kind of been his job interview, but now it's trial by fire. He's got to go in front of the cameras. If something comes up, if an ESPN report drops, which I'm told it will be coming, he's going to be front and center, face of the franchise, hot lights, live mics, cameras on, and he's going to have to answer for them, and that's what he's signing up for.
And if it's not satisfactory answers,
and that's the thing, that you come right back full circle to where he started.
Right.
And you talk about risk with Reschke. There's a lot of risk with the Bill Beekman hire. There just is.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And Ryan and I, we talked about this a little bit at length. You'd be amazed at two guys who, like us, who think nothing about nothing else really but sports. I mean, music, movies. We'll get into some of that
later.
About trivia, that kind of stuff. But two guys like us were in a car for 4.5, almost 5 hours. And we talk about everything under the sun, and I'm not in love with the hire. I'm not. You make a great point. He's still an inside guy. They want an outside guy.
Right.
If another ESPN report comes out and it's as damning as the previous ones, which good chance that there will be some sort. I don't want to talk too much about it.
Well, I'm just sick of there being this kind of Adam.
Beekman's going to be the guy, and they'll toss him quicker than you know what.
There's a gathering storm. There's a lingering cloud. There's this kind of doubt, and you cannot fault the average Michigan State fan or even the average outside fan, aside from the Michigan trolls that are engaging in schadenfreude and want to see Michigan State fail and want to see them get the death penalty. That's ridiculous talk. But those that want to really see change for the betterment of Michigan State University, myself included, you would like to see tangible progress and efforts made toward that end. Like, oh, an outside hire, they mean business,
right?
And it sends a message. Any hire you make there sends a message. You send a message by not conducting a search, by not considering a single other outside candidate. It's the exact opposite of what President Engler promised. So there are red flags that come with that. Now, Bill Beekman might turn out to be a great hire. He might be a great athletic director. He might prove himself, but he has to prove himself. And to this point, that might play within those walls at Michigan State with an Izzo, a Dantonio, and the people that know Bill Beekman. But he's largely an unknown quantity, those outside.
Right, yeah, and I was going to say, and this is not a scenario where you say, okay, well, you know what, we're going to give you a chance. Go ahead, Bill, we're going to give you a chance to prove yourself. No, you need someone in there right now who has already proven themselves.
See, that's the thing.
Because of the circumstances.
I agree. Now, let's get to X's and O's for Michigan State, and maybe some of the stuff that you covered in your conversation with Khari Willis and LJ Scott. You know, we spoke briefly with Brian Lewerke, and Mark Dantonio gave a lot of insight in terms of where they are right now as a program, confidence-wise, leadership-wise, depth-wise, and how much further along they are in this process of recovery from the 3-9 season, which largely was atoned for in last year's 10-3 campaign. What was the vibe that you got, Adam, from Khari, from LJ, and talking to them today?
Well, and LJ said he wants to get back to Spartan Dogs football 2 years ago, and he said, hey, he's not discounting the Holiday Bowl win over Washington State. It was a great victory. Washington State was a good team. They want more than that. They want more than a Holiday Bowl. And when you've been to the playoff, when you've won a Rose Bowl, when you've been a top 10 ranked program, when you have been a favorite in the Big Ten, these guys are used to it. Michigan State football has been tremendously successful during the past decade.
Think about this, too, from LJ's perspective as a senior coming back, right? Freshman year, he hits the scene with a flash. He has the stretch against Iowa in the Big Ten championship game.
What was it? I mean, it was 22.
Legendary.
Yeah, I mean,
legendary drive with him and Connor Cook and getting the championship and going to the playoff and being part of that. How many teams outside of the core ones that we always think, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, have gotten to the playoff? So far, you can only count them on one hand, and Michigan State's one of them. They have that pelt on the wall.
Absolutely.
So LJ goes from that to his sophomore year where everything goes wrong. The wheels come off the wagon. There's divide in the locker room. There's dissension amongst the ranks. There are no leaders. 3-9 happens, they bottom out. And then last year, his junior year, they bounce back. They go 10-3. They get an impressive Holiday Bowl win. He decides that he's coming back. He tells me, I don't want to take credit if it's not the case, but Mark brought it back up today. I think I was the first person he told on the field after the Holiday Bowl in San Diego that, no, I'm coming back. And I, well, wait a minute, you're going to talk about this with your family and kind of explore your draft? No, I'm coming back. I'm like, oh, that's breaking news.
That's breaking news.
It's San Diego. Yeah. It's like Panda Watch. All right? And then I verified that with Felton Davis, and Felton, this guy, I wish he was here because he's so much fun.
Yeah,
he's such a great personality, engaging everything. I mean, I wrote the article you guys might have read. If you haven't, check it out on our website, Great Lakes Divide. Search for it there. But he knew, and he admitted that he knew. He was kind of coy about it. But LJ told him about midway through the season, like, I'm coming back. And I think the momentum of getting those wins, and I asked Coach Dantonio that question too. What was the kind of defining moment of last season, this big turnaround? And he didn't say the Michigan game. I thought he might. And the Penn State win.
Yep.
The Iowa game. That first kind of big conference test that they passed in a tough game against a physical opponent. To get that win, I think once you set off that series of wins and LJ saw the success and the progress, Adam, if they had kind of a mediocre campaign, I think LJ's gone.
Yeah.
But the fact that he saw the promise and he could come back for his senior year full circle and maybe get back to where they were his freshman year, he knows this team can do it. I think that speaks volumes about the man that LJ Scott has become, because we knew coming in he was looking for a lot of kind of individual accolades, making it to the NFL, and any goals that any running back would have, but he's so much more team-oriented now and selfless. It's remarkable to watch.
And it comes with a maturity level, and I don't want to steal this. Graham Couch did a pretty good job of interviewing LJ for a feature. So, people that were standing there waiting to ask LJ a question, I recognized that Graham was writing a feature. So he was asking LJ about family, and I mean that's you kind of tie that and taking care of his mother and everything, and at the same time, it's like, okay, yeah, NFL, and a lot of guys want to do this. His mom's a single mom, you know, his brothers. That's all that his mother has, and LJ he wants to take care of his mom, but it also sounds like LJ wants to take care of him. And I'm not just saying take care of him, come back, have a great season financially. I mean, graduate. Get an education. It's a maturity factor. It really is.
No question about it. And I think, again, what we see here developing today in Chicago, we knew Brian Lewerke is emerging as a leader. You mentioned the wonderful speech that Khari Willis gave. What an impressive young man. He might be part of the no-fly zone 2.0. They've got all their secondary starters coming back. It could be a very special unit. And we know the power of personality, drive, focus, and leadership at Joe Bacci. The leadership of LJ Scott, though, is something to keep an eye on this year. I think you're going to see him talking a lot more on the sidelines. We talked to Karan Higdon yesterday, and it's amazing kind of the parallels between those two. They're both going to be seniors. They both have a chance to improve their NFL draft stock. Both Doak Walker, Watch Award candidates, and both fully capable of having the type of season where they would be honored in that way. You see that leadership already in place with Karan Higdon, and it's something to behold. I think that's coming for LJ Scott, and I'm very intrigued to watch him on the sidelines, what's visible, and even what's behind the scenes, what we hear about as Adam and I continue to cover the Spartan portion of this equation with LJ. And I think Michigan State fans can rest assured they're going to have consistent levels of effort, execution. There aren't going to be lapses, I don't think. They're not going to have these types of flat performances that maybe once in a while in the past you could see. Mark spoke to this, and I think it's true. The level and, again, the depth and quality of leadership on this team is as good as it's ever been under Mark Dantonio in his decade-plus in East Lansing.
And that's saying a lot.
It is.
It is, because I think there's three things I think that really stick out to me about Michigan State football since Mark Dantonio's got there. Consistent defense. There was a gap, year or two, a year gap a couple times, but for the most part, very consistent quarterback, but you need that leadership. Sounds pretty simple, but it's there.
It can be elusive too, and when you don't have it, you're in trouble.
Exactly.
And you find that out quickly, like Michigan State did in 2016. Any other thoughts on Michigan State that stand out to you, Adam, based on what you were able to cover today?
I don't want to be boring here and say no, nothing. But no, nothing really. No, nothing really. I mean, I think we'll learn a lot more once camp starts. Obviously, the same goes with Michigan. But right now, I think with Michigan State, Mark Dantonio's demeanor hasn't changed as far as, you mentioned it. This is a confident team. Someone mentioned to Mark he needs 10 more wins to become the all-time win leader at Michigan State University. And he said, you know what? He kind of smiled, but one game at a time. And that's as cliche as it gets, as it will ever get. But guess what? In sports, that's all you can do is play one game at a time.
And one thing I noticed, and again, you can hear the entire audio of the Mark Dantonio individual breakout press conference, which we got tremendous access. There were only a handful of reporters, in addition to myself, that were there for the whole thing. And what I noticed was a lighter, more jovial, interactive Mark Dantonio. His walls weren't up. He was engaging. I'm going to say much the same impression I got from Jim Harbaugh yesterday, that, a lot of times you might come to something like this and be going through the motions, and it's like pulling teeth, and you'd rather have a root canal.
They got to answer it. You made the point of these guys are answering the same questions from, hundreds of reporters.
Yeah.
And if it's not identical, very similar questions all the time.
Yeah.
And it is go through it, and some of it tends to get robotic.
Yeah. But Mark was, he kind of had that glint in his eye a little bit. Sometimes he does have a remarkable sense of humor. I think people lose that a lot of times in his Don Draper persona, as I call it, from Mad Men. He's just very stoic, very linear, kind of binary code.
I think he's funny, though.
He's very funny. He's very dry, but that's kind of my sense of humor, too. Yeah. But another thing that I spoke to Mark about, and I spoke to Brian about, was the freedom, kind of the loosening of the reins. You got this wild stallion a year ago, and Brian Lewerke. What are you going to get out of the quarterback position, and how is Dave Warner going to be able to kind of plug and play what Brian brings to the table? And we saw the other end of that, and again, I covered this in my Michigan State preview article. When it goes wrong, Tyler O'Connor, all due respect, he never really could fully grasp the offense, the playbook, the timing or the lack of time that you have in reading the line of scrimmage, picking up on your checkdowns, delivering the football. Brian commented, you were there for these comments too, about what was he really focusing on in the offseason, his game. His relationship with Dave Warner, they're very tight. They exchange ideas. The playbook's open. There's going to be a lot of room for improvisation. I look at it as, if Connor Cook was more kind of rock and roll at quarterback, I think Brian Lewerke is jazz. Like open mic, improvisational jazz.
I can see that.
Yeah, and just, he'll let's say, I get excited just talking about it because just as a football fan.
New wave jazz because of the haircut.
You got to see this haircut, by the way. It's remarkable. If I had enough hair, I would try to mimic it myself. I'm very sad about this. But anyway, imagine, if you will, a formation. And if I'm Dave Warner, I'm just salivating at the thought of it looks the same. You got L.J. Scott, bell cow back behind you. You got Felton Davis, Cody White on either side. You got Sokol at tight end. You got an offensive line in formation. The following thing could happen out of that formation. Play action, read option, roll out, outside the pocket. Brian could still deliver the football, crossing route, deep pattern, or he can tuck it and run, or he can pitch it to LJ. I mean, think about the permutations, right? If you're doing the calculus of offense for Dave Warner, Michigan State, this is going to be a nightmare for a lot of defenses out there to face because of the Brian Lewerke element. And that's kind of the common theme I pulled from this entire event here, both days, Adam. More quarterbacks like a Brian Lewerke that are multi-dimensional, that can hurt you in different ways. Trace McSorley being one of those.
Absolutely.
Shea Patterson could be one of those for Michigan. In today's football and today's offenses with the sophisticated defenses, you almost need that kind of quarterback, not your standard kind of pocket passer, drop back, traditional guy to succeed in college football anymore.
Well, yeah, and I'll bring up a guy. A lot of people, and Aaron Wise says, "Hey guys, Aaron, thanks for joining." Steve Florian says RPO offense was the difference for Brian last year versus pass pro.
And there'd be more of it. There's going to be more of it.
I lost my train of thought for a second. Where was I going?
College football, quarterbacks, multidimensional, diverse.
I'm blanking now. It has been a long 2 days here. Ryan and I have
especially for Adam.
Well, I don't know about that.
Yeah, especially for Adam.
That's for the premium podcast subscribers in the future. Jason Nick, if you're watching.
Oh boy.
But anyway. I forgot what I was going to say.
I really got you rattled, man.
You do.
Something that doesn't happen to Brian Lewerke, by the way.
Yeah.
Look at me tying it back into the theme.
Exactly. Hey, I like it. And right now, I'm getting a real shiver down it. So it's from the air conditioning.
Oh, you're going to blame that?
Yeah.
Making a lot of excuses.
I'm making some excuses.
Blame the weather next?
I will if I have to. But
okay.
I want to thank everybody for watching us.
Oh yeah, I got one more thing I want to talk about. Oh yeah, look at
I'm sorry.
We're at 37 now. What's going to happen, Adam? Is so we do the Michigan podcast, right? We went 45 minutes. The Michigan State one's at 37.
So we shortchanged the Spartans.
That's what I'm saying.
All right, I get it. We're gonna have to make sure they're identical in length and identical in depth, so that way neither side of the fan base feels like they're getting shortchanged.
There we go. Now, let's make this kind of quick bullet point, because we didn't do this yesterday. Give me a feel, and I won't hold you to it necessarily as a prediction, but let's start.
Aaron Wise says they can be shortchanged. It's okay.
Thanks. We'll wrap it up just for you.
Yeah, thanks,
But win total for Michigan, what number are you comfortable with predicting, saying they absolutely will get to X wins, including a bowl game?
8.
Only 8?
Yes.
Why?
That's a tough schedule.
It's a very tough schedule. The road portion. That
is a tough schedule.
South Bend, Evanston, East Lansing, Columbus.
You don't know who your quarterback is. I mean, and
you're like a conspiracy theory. It's Shea Patterson. This is part 2 of this argument.
But there's no guarantee. There
better be.
There's no guarantee. If I knew for a fact, like in years past, I really liked Wilton Speight at Michigan. I had no problem with Wilton Speight being the quarterback, saying that Michigan was a
Michigan fans did.
Some did. I think Wilton Speight was vastly underappreciated, and
you think he's going to do great things at UCLA?
I don't know. I think that I would have liked to see him stick at Michigan and see what would happen.
I'll go 9 wins on Michigan, including the bowl game, because we talk about.
Okay, yeah. So
you're at 9.
I'll go 9.
Winning the bowl game. All right. Okay.
Go 9.
Well, what I'm saying is they have to show, and they haven't to this point, taken their show on the road. South Bend, Evanston, East Lansing, Columbus. Until or unless they're the same team that we see in Ann Arbor playing that tough of football on the road. I think the only exception, ironically, is in Columbus. They usually play pretty well and compete. For Michigan State, win total.
I think 10 wins, 9 wins.
I'm at 11, including the bowl game. I'm really high on the Spartans. I think continuity, experience, again outlined in the article, a favorable schedule breaks their way. Right. I don't I don't feel real confident about the Ohio State game, even just because of what happened a year ago. We know how good the Buckeyes are going to be, but at Penn State, at Nebraska, I think they get at least one of those. Maybe they lose. And at least from this point, and people, Homer, whatever, I don't know how you can say Michigan's a favorite going into East Lansing this year. I don't know how you can make that argument.
I think my ADHD just kicked in because as soon as you mentioned Ohio State, now I remember what I was going to say.
Oh, when we're
talking about JT
Barrett, right, okay.
This guy got crapped on by Ohio State fans right on a regular basis. All he did was win. All he did was set Big Ten touchdown record. I liked JT Barrett at Ohio State. He's an exciting player to watch, very talented player, and it is a quarterback like that. Now, do I think he's going to be a great NFL quarterback? He's not going to be a quarterback in the NFL. But in the college game, that helps. But I think where Brian has an advantage, Brian can learn that, but I think at the heart, Brian is still a very good pocket passer. He does have that.
Oh, sure.
He doesn't have to compensate for lack of arm strength by being too much of an athlete.
Better NFL quarterback prospect, Brian Lewerke or Trace McSorley?
Brian Lewerke.
I agree. Brian Lewerke or Shea Patterson?
Based on what
right now,
saying, Brian Lewerke.
I agree. I think it could change. Michigan
Based
fans will freak out.
Don't at me. I'm going to get a...
You can at me. Go ahead and at me. I'll go ahead and make the same argument. Real quick, couple points here to wrap up. I want to make sure that we cover. I talked to Bill Carollo, director of officiating for the Big Ten, about targeting, and it was fascinating. He gave me a real detailed explanation in the main press conference today on the use of replay and targeting, definition and enforcement. He admitted they don't get 100% of them right. He said there were a couple targeting calls last year that he didn't like, that he wasn't a fan of.
Well, what? I think Josh Metellus, Michigan.
Oh, yeah.
One of them. I think Devin Bush had a questionable. Joe Bacci, or was that the year before?
Right, but the point he made, I get it, is if they're going to err on one side or the other, they're going to err on the side of caution, they're going to err on the side of safety, they're going to err on the side of ejecting a guy. They explored in the off-season remedies to maybe making it like soccer, where you get 2 yellow cards equal a red, or a flagrant 1-2 situation, varying degrees of targeting. And what they decided was it would water it down in the application of the rule. They wanted a hard, fast rule. They wanted severe consequences. This is something that the coaches bought into, that they want called and monitored and controlled. So when you try to blame the officials or Bill Carollo, it's not them. I mean, the coaches sign up for this. It's about safety, head injuries, and again, definitions real quickly on targeting. The first is the use of crown of the helmet, which, again, there's open interpretation. What's the crown? Is it all the way back here? Is it just, but that type of self-inflicted harm is enforced with targeting. And then the one where more of the calls are made is hit to the neck and above. You have a strike zone now that's very clearly defined of the shoulders, below the neck, down to thighs. And you cannot, they made another rule about knees. They're going to strictly enforce a new rule about low blocks a little bit more stringently now. But basically they're looking for, the word that Bill used was indicators. And you could check off a few boxes. Now, he said if you're going form tackle, head to the side, shoulder to the target area, and something happens, and this happens, a receiver falls, and now his head lowers, and it happens to turn into what looks like targeting.
A guy tries to maneuver out of the tackle, and all of a sudden his levels change, but your level
has The defender is making a football play, and the intent, it's a gray area, right? How do you derive that? How do you decipher that? But he would like to have it get to a point where, there might be a big bad hit, and it might result even in injury. But if the defender did everything he was supposed to do as a tackler, then how do you punish that guy? So I was very happy to hear him say that. The other indicators he was talking to, obviously contact, head, neck, a launch, a forceful hit, speed generated, receiver or running back or quarterback in a defenseless position. All I'm hoping for here, Adam, is clarity and consistency in the application of this rule. We haven't gotten that in college football.
And I don't want to burst your bubble. I mean, ideally yes, but I mean, it's going to continue to be a gray area, I think, and that's just it's the nature of the beast. Because again, you can't necessarily determine intent unless you have all of those physical indicators there. Because at the same time, I mean, let's say, okay, I'm trying to tackle Ryan Schuiling here. In my mind, I'm like, I want to whack this guy.
Hey.
I want to hurt him.
Hey.
But in theory, but I'm gonna wrap him up.
Yeah.
I know maybe something else that I could do once I get it. You know, there's.
Oh, there's gonna be funny business.
Oh, yeah.
You know, at the bottom of the piles and
oil
whatever else.
checks,
What do you call them?
Oil check.
Is that what that is? All right. Okay. Yeah.
Checking the oil. You never heard that?
Well, speaking of oil checks, we got to get out of here in Chicago. So there we go. Got the 45 minutes. Did your job. Adam Biggers.
We got there.
We're 2 podcasts in.
We are in
Chi-Town. Bye-bye.
Yeah, well, and unfortunately, because it's been a great time in Chicago. I had a lot of fun. Ryan had a lot of fun. Thanks to Justin
Especially
Doyle.
Adam.
You're making us sound really bad. Like
no, it's not bad.
Well,
it's not bad at all. It's just he had a really good time, and that's fine. It's fine. So we'll wrap it up here. Again, we invite you to check
Dory's
us out.
Watching. If you're watching, hello, Dory.
The Explorer.
Dory the Explorer.
Okay.
She was watching last night. We had a live audience of 2 people. So I want to thank everybody. That's all the detail. I've already gone too far. We got to save this for the premium.
Right. Okay.
The Great Lakes Divide After Dark. Anyway, follow us on Twitter and Facebook at GL Divide. Follow me on Twitter at AdamBiggers81, at Ryan Schuiling. Website is greatlakesdivide.squarespace.com. Lots more audio from both sides. Harbaugh, Dantonio, Michigan State. We're going to have
Ron Higdon, Brian
Lewerke. Watch for a lot of written content once we get back into Michigan. I'm going to start pounding out things for the next couple days. With it being, we'll arrive on, I want to get on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday kind of schedule.
Right.
And then post game and something on Sunday. So basically Tuesdays and Thursdays will be work days. But we're probably going to post stuff every single day. But right now, when we get back, I would look for something late tomorrow, early Thursday for myself. Ryan will be doing things as well. A lot of audio, though. And an hour of Jim Harbaugh audio, I don't think, and Ryan was there for that as well. An hour almost of Mark Dantonio. So hopefully, if you guys are watching, chances are you weren't able to make it out, but hopefully once you sift through all of our videos and all the written content, at least you'll feel like that you were there, and then we did our job.
All right.
So thanks for watching, everybody. I'm Adam Biggers.
I'm Ryan Schuiling.
We're
See you later.
Great Lakes Divide. We'll catch you guys next time.
Excellent.
Party on. You didn't do that. Okay, we're done.
Okay, good.
Thanks for watching, Steve and Aaron.